22nd September 2025, Indian IT index came down by nearly 3% because Donald Trump issued the new rules on H-1B visa where he imposed a new fee of close to around $1 lakh. Before we decode how exactly this can impact the IT sector, I want to take you through the history and what are the potential opportunities that lies ahead for Indian IT. Hi, my name is Saket and welcome to the Firstock show where we are going to discuss about the latest current affairs and how it can impact the market. Just a few decades ago, India was known for agriculture. Agriculture was the backbone of India even today because as it largely employs a huge chunk of population. But as we came to the year 1990s, we saw the IT service industry explode. All thanks to this bug called as Y2K. So this is more than a big problem which came to most of the American tech companies around the year of 2000. So why did it happen? As in when the calendar year shifted from 1900s to 2000, suddenly all the software across stopped working. For example, today if I write date 22/9/25, so you are automatically going to assume 22 September 2025. So this became an issue when the year changed from 1900s all the way to 2000. So when you were writing 01 or 02 or 00, the computers or the systems automatically assumed it was 1900 rather than 2000. This caused nearly an existential threat for the entire IT sector around the world. So this is when the Indian IT sector came in handy. The world wanted something fast and affordable. India had a vast pool of people who were fluent in speaking English, they were educated, so they had basic technical skills, and they were the right set of people that the world wanted to solve this issue. And this is when the real IT boom in India took place. So this issue was not just about solving a short-term bug, but this also built trust in Indian IT service, and this laid a foundation for global credibility of Indian IT. After this, there was no looking back for IT because there were a huge chunk of service orders coming in from all around the world, and India was one of the best place to be dependent on because they were delivering good quality service at affordable cost with very cheap labor. For example, at a point in time, the US companies were able to get the job done with hardly around 30 to 40% of the total cost by outsourcing it to India compared to getting it done in US. In some cases, the difference also extended almost around 7 to 10 times where it was much cheaper to do it in India rather than getting the whole thing done in US. While the affordability was one of the major advantages, the second one which came in handy is the sheer number of engineers India was able to produce, and this was a real abundance of resource which India had. Today, IT employs close to around 5.4 million people, which is around 54 lakh people are employed in the IT sector. And IT sector contributes nearly around 8% of India's GDP, and this is soon expected to be somewhere close to around 10 to 12% of India's GDP. While the Indian IT boom started to begin, a lot of projects were coming in from the US. So as of 2020, nearly 60 to 65% of the total exports which India did actually came in from the US. This made the entire IT sector be heavily dependent on the US. Any change in any policies of the United States directly impacted the Indian IT because their majority of revenue was directly linked to US. Up until now, we have established two important things: how the Indian IT was able to scale, and second one, what is the dependency of US on Indian IT, where nearly 60% of our IT exports even today goes to the US. The H-1B visa is a US non-immigrant work visa that allows American companies to employ foreign professionals in specialty occupations. So mostly that is our technical services, medical services, and much more. So this was an employer-sponsored visa. That means companies like Microsoft, Amazon, so any companies that had to employ Indian worker in the US had to actually apply for the sponsorship. So it was not just the US companies. So if you take a look at it, so companies like Infosys, TCS, even they have businesses in US where they actually get Indian employees to the US. And whenever that had to happen, so they had to actually apply for the sponsorship of the employee's visa. And the cost for applying the sponsorship was just around $1,700. So the total cost of this would come somewhere around 1.5 lakh rupees for the company. But now, in the recent policy, Trump changed the cost from hardly around $1,700 to nearly $1 lakh. So that is nearly close to around 89 lakh rupees. So now when you take a look at it, this 89 lakh rupees is much higher than most of the packages what these companies are offering to the employees. So now it makes no sense for a US based company or an Indian company having an office in US to actually get a worker from outside paying nearly 89 lakh rupees as a one-time fee. So assuming that you are paying this, you get the employee, you have to pay the salary to the employee. The cost of recruiting a person outside of the US in US has now exponentially gone up. So now when you take a look at it, out of the total H-1B visas issued, nearly 70 to 75% went directly to Indians. In 2015, out of all the H-1B visas issued, nearly 1,20,000 were issued to Indians, and the same number 10 years later, somewhere around 2025, nearly 2,80,000 H-1B visas have been issued, and all of these are Indians. So when you take a look at it, statistically, nearly 70% of the total H-1B visas issued by the US companies are to the Indians. And specifically, when you take a look at it, most of these people are actually from the IT sector. So when you take a look at it, what is the amount of visas that has been applied by Indian companies? So for example, TCS had applied 5,500 visas, that is H-1B visa. Infosys had applied nearly around 3,000 H-1B visas. HCL had applied nearly 2,300. Cognizant had applied anywhere around 2,000 to 8,000 visas. Tech Mahindra had applied somewhere around 900 to 1,000 visas. So when you take a look at all of this, so you see that there were a lot of visa applications which were pending. So when we take a look at it, 5,000 visas into $1 lakh is a huge amount in itself, right? So it is not one or two visas what we are talking about. It is thousands of employees who were actually being migrated from India to the US and they were applying for H-1B visa. This is more like a lifeline for the employee to move from India to the US and start working in the US. So how does this impact the companies? Firstly, there is a talent shortage. So they could easily outsource cheap labor from India to the US. Now, the estimated hiring cost in the US is expected to go up by nearly around 30% for these companies because they can no longer do easy outsourcing. And what is the impact? This is going to directly hit their margins. So when you take a look at the IT sector, most of the revenue still comes from the US. And when you take a look at it, companies like Infosys, TCS and all the other tech chains in India get majority chunk of the revenue from the exports, especially the US. So now when this directly affects the company, it is also going to hit their margins, and as it hits their margin, it is also going to bring down their overall profitability. So this is one of the reasons why today we have seen Indian IT plummet nearly 3%. So stocks like Infosys also came down by 4% because it is going to impact them directly. So there were a lot of myths going on around. So the first myth was this was a fee that has to be paid yearly, which was again busted, saying that it is just a one-time fee. The second myth was if somebody is going to return back to India, and again if he is going back, again the fee has to be paid. So even this was a myth. Once you have paid, you can also come back and go back to US anytime. The third myth which was going around is that every single person has to pay. So that was again false. Only new applicants have to pay and people who already have received the H-1B visa need not pay. And the fourth one is only the Indian IT sector is going to get affected. So in reality, it is false. It is not just the Indian IT sector. So it is also the universities of the US which is going to take a direct hit, because if jobs are not guaranteed, nobody is going to fly all the way to US to actually study. and other things like US startups, which again heavily dependent on Indian tech, and the hospitals because H1B visa is also applicable for the doctors and medical care unit. So even they will be under threat. So it is not just the Indian companies, but the US companies are also going to face an increase in overall cost. And the last myth which actually went around is this is only for Indians. The answer is wrong. So this was not intended to keep Indians away, or it was not meant only for Indians. It was meant for everybody around. So everybody has to pay the fee irrespective of your Indian or of any other country. So it was not made to keep Indians away, but the whole idea of bringing this around was to boost the local job market. So the US President Donald Trump also stated that he has seen many instances where they were able to get cheap labor from outside, and the US citizens ended up losing the job because once they got cheaper labor, they replaced the US citizens with the cheaper labor and they ended up becoming jobless. So to avoid that happening, so they want to make sure they charge a hefty fee for getting people from outside, so it won't avoid any misuse. Rather than that, so only people who are really talented and the company really needs, so they will be sponsored and they will be brought in into the US. So what is the future for Indian IT sector? So when you take a look at it, IT has been one of the worst performing sectors ever since 2021. So the markets have gone way higher than what they were in 2021, but IT as an industry is still struggling. So what are the major reasons for it? Again, it is India is heavily service dependent. India does not have a lot of IPs of their own. They do not have a lot of strong products of their own. Most of the revenues are coming from the outsourced projects of outside countries. And that's the reason the market also has punished the IT stock severely, because the market doesn't seem to see any strong future going ahead. So then what next for the Indian IT firms? When you take a look at it, the major problem is they don't have any IP. All this while, Indian IT was only service dependent. So they didn't build any products of their own, neither they ended up creating any IPs. So they are nothing but your intellectual properties. So for example, so today if you take a look at Google, so every single person, be it in US or India, uses Google search. Similarly, everybody uses Facebook, WhatsApp, Meta, ChatGPT, and so on. So when you take a look at that, from India, we don't have any such strong products where people can actually depend on. On the software end, there is Microsoft, which most of the people use. There is Android, which again most of the phones use. There is Apple. All of this is part of the US. When you come to India, even though a lot of brands have tried, many have failed. So there is not a single solid brand which India can today boast about. So if you look at the entire AI segment as a whole, AI segment is pretty young and it is just starting out. Unfortunately, India hasn't invested much. So there are billions of dollars which the Indian IT firms are using for buyback and dividends rather than heavily investing in R&D of AI. So if you take a look at it, today India lags way behind China and US in terms of training the models or the progress what India has done in terms of AI. To do that, we need top minds, good amount of money, everything to come together so that we can have something solid of our own. Whether this entire thing is a short-term pain or the long-term pain is something which time can tell. If these companies can adapt quickly, evolve and change a lot of things, then very likely you're going to see a strong bounce in most of these companies. So let me know what you think about this video, and if this video was insightful, you were able to get a whole understanding of how the IT sector has evolved in India, make sure you hit the like button, share this video and subscribe to Firstock. We will try to bring more such videos in this particular show, First Talk. If there's anything else you're explicitly looking for, just drop down in the comment section below and we will ensure that we will make a video on the same. Thank you so much for joining guys, and see you soon in the next video.